Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Corner Office, one that is highly anticipated since the past few days have occurred. Obviously, we have a lot to cover before this weekend. Obviously, the Super Bowl is coming up, but something that I feel like has kind of overshadowed the Super Bowl in the past 48 hours has been the NBA trade deadline. Something that Jack and I are always super interested to, learn about. But like this year, it feels like there was just something in the water. And maybe it's because Adam Silver was getting worried about the ratings and had to shake things up. So he called every GM and was like, hey, you need to make a move right now. But like some of the biggest trades that I've ever seen in my life occurred over this deadline. And this is one of the most explosive deadlines I've seen over the past decade.
Dare I say this is one of our most action-packed episodes we've ever had. We have so much
there's
to
a
talk
lot
about.
going on.
We had a huge episode just to talk about the Super Bowl. And then all of a sudden, last Saturday night, Luka Doncic gets traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. And then since then, every day it feels like something has absolutely shook the NBA.
Yeah.
And there's a list of 6 or 7 trades that have happened this week that by themselves would have made this a great trade deadline, let alone all of them happening at once. So we're here to break that all down. But before we get into that, we are going to have to talk about the Super Bowl. And This is a casualty for both of us because none of us want to do it. So we're going to spend less time talking about the game and more time talking about all of the special props that we're going to take. How does that sound?
Let's go. Finally.
All right, so we tend to do this every year. We'll actually talk about the game after this, but we're going to start off with something fun first. So I've got a list of Super Bowl prop bets that we're going to take similarly to our in-season picks all year. Starting with National Anthem, as we always do. It's the best bet in the world. I know that in the past, it's hit last year. The over did. The under hit 2 years ago when it was Chris Stapleton. This year, it's John Baptiste, who's coming off a Grammy win this weekend. And because of that, I think he's going to want the spotlight. And the over-under is set at 120.5 seconds right now. I'm smashing the over on that.
Yeah, I mean, the under is plus odds, which is not something that you see often, I don't think. And, John Baptiste, the guy who just won a Grammy, as was brought to my attention by Jack about 15 minutes before this episode started, had no idea who that was, but good ball knowledge by him to pull that one out. But since you took the over, I'm obligated to take the under. I think he's going to have a little bit of stage fright out there, and he's going to want to get off that stage as quickly as possible while still doing a good job and respecting America and all that type of stuff. But I'm going to take in the under here on John Baptiste at the Super Bowl national anthem.
So let's talk coin flip. And the coin flip's always interesting because you have to talk about the coin, whether it's going to be cool or not, or whether they're just going to have like a regular old quarter out there. What do you think they flip the coin with the first time in like the first
I don't know what you mean by it. Like, do they put something on it? Is it going to be like an Eagles head and like a Chiefs tail? You know,
so for the college football playoff, they had like one side had Notre Dame on it and one side had Ohio State, or they'll put like the Super Bowl logo on it.
Okay.
So there's cool stuff on there. And then we have to talk about who's going to be the one flipping it because they always have someone special doing it. A couple years ago, it was George H.W. Wait, don't look it up yet. I want to guess.
Okay. All right.
I think that it will be someone involved with the tragedy that happened there a month ago. One of maybe the first responders. I think that would be really cool if they did that. Rather than just like some random celebrity coming in because it is in New Orleans this year. So that would be really cool.
It's true.
And then I'm going to stick with Tails. Tails never fails, and I'm going to stick by it.
Yeah, I mean, so while we were in the preparation for this episode, I did a little bit of recon here. Obviously, last year it was heads, which means that Tails failed, and I think I went with Tails last year, and I think I was, a little bit upset about that. But if you look at the Chiefs Super Bowls, the ones that they have been in the past 3 years, the past 3 that they have won the coin toss on when they guessed it, it was heads, tails, heads. A 2-to-1 heads to tails ratio. And for that reason, I'm taking heads here. I think it's the heads up play.
I don't like that.
I think it's the heads up play.
Yeah. I don't like that because it went heads and then it went tails and then it went back to heads. And if fate occurs again, it would obviously be tails here. So I'm locking in tails.
Okay. I looked up who is flipping the coin, and I have no answer for you. I don't know. I guess
we'll figure
who's
out
doing the coin flip.
And then let's talk kick of destiny. Last 2 years, it's been Rob Gronkowski, and you think that he would be athletic enough to kick a 30-yard field goal? You're
but he's kind of
wrong.
All right, here's the thing about Gronk, though. He's kind of a massive doofus. As much as he's, obviously an NFL player or used to be an NFL player, like he's kind of an idiot. So like I'm not super shocked that he hasn't been able to kick the ball through the uprights from 30 yards away.
Which is not far.
It doesn't feel like it's that far.
It's not far.
Who's kicking it this year? That's, I think, the biggest question.
It's the Manning brothers.
All of them, they get a shot at it?
It's Eli and Peyton. And they're both 50-plus years. They're both 50 years old.
Do they both have to make it? Or do they both just get a slot shot?
I think they just both get a shot. I don't necessarily think either of them. I think, okay, you're going to have to hear me out here. I think Peyton misses.
Yeah.
I think Eli gets it.
Eli definitely gets it.
Yeah.
Here's why.
You
ready?
Right, I'll let you go first. I have a reason why, too.
All right. Eli Manning, in 2022, disguised himself as a Penn State walk-on and did a whole thing on YouTube in retirement just to hang out and show that he still has it. I have a feeling that guy can kick a football 30 yards.
Okay, that is true.
I don't know.
My theory is that Eli Manning has nothing to do besides the Manning cast and enough money to put a field goal post up in his backyard. I think he's
just been trying?
I think he's been practicing. Unlike a real man who would just go up there and kick it one time. Let's talk kickoff. Touchback or no touchback?
Touchback.
I think they're taking it out.
No way.
I think they're taking it out.
Is that because of the new kickoff rules?
I'm just saying that because I want to see, have you seen the clip of Devin Hester taking back the kick in the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
With all of the cameras flashing?
Yeah.
That is awesome.
I know.
I think every Super Bowl should start with a kickoff return.
I'm just saying, if Harrison Butker gets on the bottom of that football, it's going out the back of the end zone.
Yeah.
So you are banking on Jake Elliott getting the kick here.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
First play, runner pass. I think it's a run for the Eagles, pass for the Chiefs. And if I'm banking on Jake Elliott, then I think it's a pass.
All right, I'm taking run here. Taking run.
We're just fighting. This is our favorite one to do every year.
Yeah.
Gatorade dump color. And let me give you the options that are officially listed. Purple's the favorite, and then it goes yellow, orange, blue, red, water, and then no Gatorade dump.
No Gatorade dump would be sacrilegious. Who would ever bet on that? Look, it's been purple the past few years, right? Isn't that all right, so here's the breakdown, right? This is what we did last year. I think the Chiefs will be wearing white, which means that the Eagles won't have red Gatorade, in my opinion, right? That means the Chiefs won't have green Gatorade because the Eagles are going to be wearing green, right? I don't think they do the opposing color, so I think you eliminate both of those right off the bat. Green's not even on the list here. Orange, I always feel like is a safe bet, but the Chiefs have been purple 2 or 3 times, I think. Blue's a good one just because everybody likes blue, and I mean, obviously yellow is a staple in the Gatorade game, so it's really, it's any man's game today. And I think it just comes down to who you believe is going to win the Super Bowl. Because I think Andy Reid is a really superstitious cat. And I think that they're back in the Super Bowl, which means that if the Chiefs win, you're going to be seeing purple. And if the Eagles win, you're going to be seeing something completely random. And because of that, I'm eliminating that 50-50 chance, and I'm taking purple again for the Super Bowl this year.
I can't take purple or orange because I hate both of those flavors.
Okay.
I think it won't be red. I could really see this being like a Glacier Freeze blue Gatorade dump this year.
Possibly.
So I'm going to lock in blue.
It would be my choice. It would be my choice. If I had to pick one, to be dumped on me, it would have to be that one.
The last one that I have is the first song that Kendrick Lamar does at halftime.
I have no idea.
My pick is, I think he's going to come out to If Pyros and Crips all got along, probably gonna be down at the end of the song. Hold on.
I hear over.
Yeah, I think the first song that gets played is Good Kid, Mad City.
So he's already said that Not Like Us is not going to be played, which I think is the right thing to do. And I probably would have to get the shotgun out of my side drawer if I had to hear that song another time. So here's what I'm thinking is obviously he's going to do a song with SZA because SZA's coming out, but I don't think it's going to be song number one. I think they're going to work into it. The two songs that I'm throwing out there that I think he could come out to are Humble or TV Off. Because I think he has the new one with TV Off would be fire, and then Humble is obviously one that everybody knows if you're from our gen. But yeah, I think that he does something from either Damn or from GNX.
I'm really excited for this show.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a good show.
It's the first time in a long time that I've been really excited for the halftime show.
I don't know. I think I would love to see Kendrick have a good halftime show, but I really feel like we're due for one that just like crashes and burns because I haven't seen a bad one in a long period of time.
That is so wrong. That is so wrong.
What was a bad one?
Usher was bad, objectively.
Was that last year?
Yeah.
Kind of forgot about that. I don't even think it was that bad.
And you know what was really, really bad? The Weeknd.
It was COVID.
Yeah, but his show was so bad.
All right. He has a new album out that's apparently fire. Probably won't listen to it.
Yeah, I promise you, I won't be tapped into that.
For anybody who's interested in that, unfortunately, it's time to talk about the game, which I don't think either of us really care about. I hate people who are like, I'm going to be watching the Super Bowl for the commercials. Like, no, you're not. Like,
no,
grow up a little bit.
You won't be at my Super Bowl party. I promise you that.
Nope. No Doritos for you. No dip. Nothing. You don't get a thing. You don't get a thing from this spread over here. But what I will say is that I will not be super engaged in this one, and I'm going to try really hard to not have a visceral emotional reaction to if the Chiefs win. But it's probably going to be really hard for me. So
yeah, I'm gonna say right now on Thursday that I'm not gonna care. Yeah, and then it's gonna roll around. And right around 9:30 on Sunday, I'm going to wish that I had 300 hours of my life back.
I keep telling myself, because I keep seeing this everywhere, it's like, unfortunately, one of these two teams has to win, but thank God one of these two fan bases has to lose. I think that's how like we're going about this one is kind of screw both teams. But let's do a breakdown here. I think that the first thing you have to note about these two teams is the matchup. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles have been a team that have been super heavy on the run this year. Saquon Barkley has been probably the best player in the NFL. Won't win MVP because it's a quarterback award, but probably should. And he will win Offensive Player of the Year or whatever it is. The question that I have is now he's facing the number one run defense in the NFL in the Kansas City Chiefs. So what are you going to be seeing? Are you going to be seeing Saquon do things that Saquon does? Because, I mean, he's obviously shown that he's capable of breaking off massive gains. Or are they going to stifle the run and then you're going to have to rely on Jalen Hurts, who hasn't really played great at the quarterback position this year? I think that's the biggest question for the Eagles going into this game, and I want to get your thoughts on it.
Well, I don't necessarily think that he's played great all year. I think he's looked really smart in the postseason, kind of doing all the things that they've needed him to do. And that's what they're going to have to continue to do in this game. I think that players like Saquon Barkley, when you have the highest caliber of player, it's not a question as to whether or not they're going to show up. It's a question as to whether or not they're going to have one of those games like he had last game where they go for 203 touchdowns. Right. I don't think anyone's asking whether or not he's going to have like 70, 80 yards and be a factor. That's going to happen regardless. And even the best run defense in the league won't stop that.
Right.
But I think that, yes, it is the best run defense in the league. It is also one of the best offensive lines in the NFL.
Yes,
and
true.
Even though they're somewhat banged up right now, I think that these 2 weeks off have given those big guys like enough time to heal and be in at least as close to 100% as they'll be in this stage of the season. So, in order to answer your question, I think that Saquon will be fine. I think that another matchup that we need to keep our eyes on here is the Chiefs' offense against the Eagles' secondary, especially when thinking about their linebackers covering Travis Kelce, and they have Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean. They had them throughout the season. Nakobe Dean went down in their second playoff game, and now they're going to have to put a somewhat inexperienced coverage linebacker in there to cover one of the best tight ends in NFL history. Right. So that to me is a huge key. If they can limit Travis Kelce, I think that they are going to. I think that their corners are good enough to at least put pressure on all of these wide receivers and make it difficult on Mahomes in this offense. Mm-hmm. But that is definitely one of the keys to this game.
Okay. Yeah, I think that this game is really going to come down to I really don't see a reality in which the Eagles win, which is something that I'm really coming to terms with. I just think that the Chiefs play such good football in the playoffs. And like, as much as I've been impressed by this Eagles team, their offense and their secondary, which has been, two white cornerbacks, don't think anybody saw that coming or working out. But like they've been super successful this year. And, they bounced back from some early losses, but like it comes down to X factors. And to me, I just don't think Jalen Hurts is a good enough quarterback. He's slow in the pocket. He doesn't really make the right reads. He has two really good receivers who are going to be playing against, probably single and double coverage. He's going to have to get the ball out quick against one of the most like pass rush heavy defenses, like blitz heavy defenses in the NFL, who really stifled, Josh Allen in the first game with the amount of pressure that they put on him. And Jalen Hurts just isn't as mobile as Josh Allen is. You know what I mean? So
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think that he can do the same things that Josh Allen can when he's outside of the pocket, but he's definitely as mobile.
Okay. Either way, though, I don't really see a reality in which the Chiefs win or in which the Chiefs lose here. And as much as I'm going to, it pains me to say it, I think they're going to complete the three-peat.
So I think that one thing that you're discounting here is how good the Eagles' defense is.
Yes,
and they are also up there with one of the best in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And if their secondary shows up, again, I think that they can make this game really hard. I think that this game will remain close and it will come down to who has the ball at the end of the game.
Okay.
Which at this point, nobody knows. And if it's the Chiefs, then it is no question, then the Chiefs will win. If it's the Eagles, then they may get it done, they may not, as we've seen in the past. I also don't want to do it, but I also know that every pick that I make on this show is incredibly wrong. Like, not even close to right.
All right.
So, with that in mind, I am going to pick the Chiefs to win, as much as that pains me. So, thank God we don't have to talk about this football game anymore. Let's talk about things that people care about.
Let's move on. I mean, obviously, the biggest trade potentially in our lifetime happened over the weekend.
Well, that is the biggest trade. That is the biggest trade in NBA history.
Yeah.
I think it may be one of the biggest trades in sports history.
Obviously, we're talking about Jaden Springer being traded to the Rockets for cash considerations and
a 2030 second round pick.
And a $4 million trade exception. No, Luka Doncic, a player that I think a lot of people, including myself, thought was going to start his career on Dallas and end his career in Dallas, has been traded to the Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Davis. There are more things that went on with this entire thing, but I think one of the things that should be noted is everybody in the NBA right now is kind of pissed off at the Mavs because no one knew Luka was available for trade. And this is the first time that I can think of in the NBA that two top 10, like bona fide top 10 players have been traded for each other in the middle of the season.
But isn't that one of the dumbest things you've ever heard? I mean, you have a player that all 29 other GMs in the league would trade for, and you didn't even shop him around. You took the first deal that you had.
Yep. Yeah, it was dumb. It was dumb. So like here,
it just makes no sense.
Let's break it down. You have a 26-year-old player who has been in MVP conversations ever since his second year in the league.
He's just made 5 straight All-NBA teams.
He just led you
more than like legendary Hall of Fame players.
He just led you to your first NBA Finals since Dirk Nowitzki in 2011?
Yep.
So he just led you to that. He's been bona fide the best player, the biggest signing that you, or like the biggest star in your area for however long he's been there. And then you like it's a player that should
him in the back.
He should be untouchable. There's no reason why you should trade him. It doesn't make any sense.
He has a key to the city.
He's a key to the city. He's a key to the city. I mean, you traded for a top 3 player for an injury-prone big. Let's call it like it is. Anthony Davis is a top 10 player in the NBA, but
Absolutely.
He's like 31 years old. And you have 2 rim protectors in Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively already on the roster. And while you can slide and Anthony Davis into the 4 role, and he'll probably be very successful there. And then you'll have 2 elite rim protecting bigs. Like, you're going all in right now, and you're not gonna go all in with the player who just brought you to the NBA Finals. Like, that was your game plan. And in return for him, you got 1 first-round pick and Max Christie.
To me, it felt like if anyone that they should have parted ways with, it should have been Kyrie Irving. but they clearly have some bigger like driving force behind this all. We just don't know what it is, because this is such a head-scratching trade. It just makes no sense. Look, I wrote about this in the article that's being posted to our website tomorrow. If Mikal Bridges, who is a great player in his own right, is worth
really good role player,
first-round picks. Luka Doncic is worth an entire draft class.
Yeah, he is a once in a generation type player. Simply put, he is going to be one of the best players in the NBA for the next 10 to 12 years if he can stay healthy.
This will borderline ruin their franchise for the next 10 years.
It could, because
it certainly could.
Like there's no inclination that Anthony Davis wants to stay on the roster. Now you've traded away the guy that like everybody rallied behind. He was clearly a leader. He clearly wanted to be there in Dallas. You've now established that anybody is not safe on your roster, which means that you're never going to get another free agent signing to come to Dallas, right? Because they're going to be shopped as soon as they get there.
Yep.
It's really mind scratching. I really don't understand it from the Dallas Mavericks perspective. From the Lakers perspective, look, you did what you had to do. Unfortunately, you have to move on from Anthony Davis, a guy that has brought you a championship, was probably your best player on the roster, but you've shored up your future for the next 8 years at a minimum. And
Absolutely.
Another thing,
but here's the question: in terms of this season, particularly this season, and I think that what the Lakers are doing is they're extending their championship window by 10 seasons. So now they don't have to worry about what's going to happen when LeBron is gone, which is something that has been a huge problem for 3 years.
Right.
But it's not a win now move, and they're going to have that expectation to win now. It is not a win now move. I don't think that this trade moves the needle for either team this season. I think that they will finish similarly to where they are right now, which is respectively 6th and 10th in the West. I don't think that they necessarily move much further than that, but in the coming years is where we are going to look back on this trade and realize that was one of the worst deals ever.
Yeah, it has the feeling of like a Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce to the Brooklyn Nets trade where they flip those picks into Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and some other future players. That's kind of the feeling that I get from this one. Is just like it's one that you're going to look back on and like right now you're like, okay, maybe it's not as awful as we're expecting it to be, and then even though people are reacting kind of the same way that we are, and then like 5 to 10 years in the future now, you're going to be like, oh my God, remember when the Lakers were able to swindle the Mavericks out of one of the best players of the new generation? Look, I think that the whole claim that Luka's fitness has become a problem is just, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable negligible. It's asinine. It's crazy. You know what I mean? Like 270 pounds, so what? He's the best scorer in the NBA, regardless of the fact that he's been hurt all season, so he hasn't been in like conditioning shape. Like obviously he's going to gain some weight, but you expect him to shed that and be just fine. And
he's also 6'7". Like he's not a small guy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm just super excited to see when he goes back and plays against the Mavericks, like what type of numbers he's going to have, because I feel like he's a guy who Luke is one of those players where if you slight him, he will come right at you.
So bad.
Right at you. And, this feels like one that could really age poorly for the Dallas Mavericks.
Another trade to me that felt like it has the potential to be such a big trade that we look back on is De'Aaron Fox moving to the Spurs.
Yes.
This has all the feeling of one of those moves that a young championship team makes in order to develop their core that they keep for 6+ years. Yes. It really does. Partnering a guy like De'Aaron Fox, who not only will get you 27 points a game, but will also facilitate at a clip of around 7 assists as well.
Mm-hmm.
With a guy like Victor Wembanyama, who's another one of those generational talents, surrounded by a core of guys who can go out there and give you 15 a night and are also only 24 years old. In Devin Vassell, in Keldon Johnson, in Jeremy Sohan, right? This has the making of a team that in a year or two will be at the forefront of the Western Conference.
And if you're San Antonio, you gave up a few first rounders, Zach Collins and Trey Jones, in order to get one of the best guards in the league.
Yeah.
This has all the feelings of like in 5 to 10 years from now, when we're talking about whether or not Victor Wembanyama was the player that everybody expected him to grow into, if he has a championship, say 2 or 3, 10, 15 years from now, you're talking about De'Aaron Fox having a potential NBA Hall of Fame case. You know what I mean?
This trade to me feels like when Pau Gasol went from the Grizzlies to the Lakers and joined that Lakers core that really stayed together for 5 or 6 years.
Yep.
So, I mean, we don't have to touch on that for much longer. Obviously, Zach LaVine moves to the Kings. The Kings, rearranged the 2021 Chicago Bulls. Who knows what's going on out there? We don't really have to touch on that. I think that this is going to be one of the biggest trades.
I don't really get the LaVine edition if you're Sacramento. But they also made some really confusing moves at the deadline. They got Jonas Valanciunas for Sidi Sissoko, which really doesn't really fit in with the lineup that they're running. And obviously, I think De'Aaron Fox was expected to move on, but now you have DeMar and Zach LaVine reunited. So, you're just running it back with the Chicago Bulls again.
The first time.
See you at the 10 seed, but it feels like a weird move for everybody else, but kudos to the San Antonio Spurs. And now is the time where I'm like, okay, does Greg Popovich still have it as an NBA coach? You know what I mean? Can he get it done with a team of guys who are this talented?
If not, he has a whole roster full of bench coaches and assistant coaches that can step in and continue out the same game plan.
Agreed.
The Greg Popovich coaching tree is absolutely insane.
Yep.
So let's run through some of these other trades that happened. Jimmy Butler to the Warriors finally bullied his way out of Miami.
Yep.
I don't think this makes the Warriors a championship team. I think it gets them out of a play-in spot. And I think that they lose in the second round.
The biggest takeaway from this trade is, to me, the 2-year, $121 million that they're going to be paying him. That's $60 million a year for a guy that just simply doesn't deserve that much money. I think the Heat treated him poorly. I think that they didn't get him the pieces that he needed to be successful after dragging that franchise to 2 championships. And you can never count him out because he is one of those types of guys who, is constantly, just gnawing at the bit, making sure his team is winning. But I really don't see this working out. I really don't see Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry. I just don't understand how that fit works. You have one that's more of a mid-range post guy, kind of the same way that, Julius Randle fits with the Minnesota Timberwolves. You have a guy who plays more of a slow pace, matched with one of the best shooters in NBA history who's trying to run off screens all the time. One of the things that made Klay and Steph so dynamic was Steph took so much attention away from Klay, right? And then Klay was able to spot up and get open ones. And then Klay would do the same thing. And you could easily dish to either one of those 40% three-point shooters. It's just not Jimmy Butler's game. It's just not. So I don't know how he fits into this team.
For sure.
And then obviously you've now devoted $121 million of your salary. So if this doesn't work out, you can't trade him anywhere. He is on the roster.
I will say they managed to make that deal without getting rid of Jonathan Kuminga, which doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to keep him. It means that they're going to make another move this summer, and that's what I'm interested in seeing.
Okay. I don't necessarily disagree. I think that you had to get rid of Wiggins or Kuminga, and I'm glad they kept Kuminga because I think he just has a higher ceiling at this point in his career. And I mean, honestly, for the Heat, you get Kyle Anderson, PJ Tucker, who you just flipped for Davion Mitchell. So your return for a guy who said he wasn't going to re-sign and was forcing his way out was probably not the worst thing in the world, even though you didn't get any draft picks, which is too bad. And then obviously, did they? They got a top 10 protected first round pick, right? So they got one pick. But I think that's probably as good a return as you could have gotten. And you sent Jimmy Butler to someplace that he did already re-sign and it's not on your roster. So good for them. I think that this probably drops them out of the Eastern Conference contention. I just think that they don't have enough star power,
which would have probably happened anyway.
Right. So, with him being suspended for however long, that probably would have happened anyways. But yeah, so now the Jimmy Butler saga in Miami is over and he has once again burned another bridge on his way out of a franchise.
Yeah. So I think that the next trade that we have to talk about is one that happened really late last night that was super startling. Brandon Ingram got traded for a honey bun and half a bag of fruit snacks. Raptors got him for
Funyuns. Some Funyuns and some hash browns from Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah. I really don't get this. I don't really don't get what the Toronto Raptors were doing.
Look,
I'll
it
say
doesn't matter. The Raptors have a super fun team. They might be horrible, but their team is so fun.
So fun. I mean, Grady Dick is great. Scotty Barnes is a little bit autistic, but really cool. Brandon Ingram now they have on their team. You traded Kelly Olynyk, who I hate. You had to trade first-round picks in order to get Brandon Ingram, which feels kind of weird. And I don't really know why you would do that, but I really don't.
They got a first and a second in return.
This doesn't make them a playoff team, so I don't really know why they did that. They traded for PJ Tucker for some reason.
It's cool.
Yeah, right, exactly. So they've just kind of been making random moves that you look at, like kind of like the Wizards, who have also just kind of been shipping people all over the place, where you're just kind of like, what are you doing a little bit?
Like, sweet.
Yeah, sure. Like, doesn't make you any better, but I mean, now you just give Brandon Ingram the absolute green light and tell him to just go out there and chuck. So, I mean, that's cool. That's what's going to happen.
He can spend the rest of his career in Toronto. I believe that is what will happen.
Really? Interesting.
I'm just out here saying stuff.
Okay.
It just kind of feels like Kuzma on the Wizards. Like, he's just going to go out there and shoot a bunch of shots. And then, come back and probably not know how to play basketball anymore.
Speaking of Kyle Kuzma, he also got flipped for Chris Middleton and some picks, I think.
I think that could be a really good move for the Bucks, actually.
I didn't think Kyle Kuzma's trade value was this high. I didn't think that you would get any picks for him. But I mean, obviously Chris Middleton has battled a lot of injury stuff and just simply hasn't been the same player that he was in 2021 when they won the championship. But the Wizards get him, AJ Johnson, and a first round pick swap. It feels weird, but at the same time, Kyle Kuzma is, a younger version of what Chris Middleton is right now and has been more healthy and probably is on a better contract. And I mean, it feels. He's on $23.5 million a year. Not awful for a guy of his caliber, 14 points a game. And then you now put him in a winning scenario where he doesn't have to take as many shots as he has been taking, which is probably a good thing for him and for the Bucks because he hasn't been making a lot of shots.
Now he's shooting the three at 28% this year. I think he could be a really good, if they're going to make a championship push, which I don't know if they have the roster to do, he could be a really good third option if he can learn how to score efficiently. And if not, he's going to be utterly useless on that team.
It is unfortunately too bad that you see another one of those members of the 2021 Milwaukee Bucks team that won that championship go. But that being said, I mean, it's a finicky business. And I think that it was time to move on for Middleton for them. So they have made that move. Another low caliber move that I think could really move the needle for a team is DeAndre Hunter is headed to Cleveland in exchange for Karis LeVert, Georges Niang, 3 second-round picks, and 2 first-round pick swaps. Great move, I think, for both teams. Honestly, I think the Hawks are kind of cleaning up house. I would expect that Trae Young will probably be off the roster this summer. And obviously the Cavs now get a really good defensive 3-and-D wing for 2 guys who were coming off the bench who probably weren't playing their roles as best as they can. I don't know what Georges Niang does on a basketball court to get 12 to 15 minutes a game. And Karis LeVert has been a solid 6-man, but probably not of the caliber of DeAndre Hunter.
He just has a huge ass and runs around with it. I think that's what he does.
That's what Georges Niang does, yeah.
And fights Joel Embiid sometimes.
Right. So yeah, I think that this is a really good move for the Cavs, and it is a little bit scary if you are a fan of any other Eastern Conference team, just how good this Cavs team has been and is getting.
Well, if you're talking about the Cavs and you look at their one weakness, it's that not only do they not have a wing scorer, they don't have a wing defender either. So when they match up against a team like the Celtics, they get killed by the wings. So I think that adding him, who he is a bona fide Celtics killer also, he always plays incredibly well against us. We are not good against the Hawks. I think that adding this just brings another layer of this Cavs team where it's okay, whatever. They're on a really good run right now. That's what they started at. They were at, okay, we're on a really good run right now. It might not stay, but we're definitely going to be a high seed in the playoffs too.
Yep.
Holy shit, they might be championship favorites.
Right.
Legitimately.
Right.
So
yeah, and I think this move really does help them bolster that and continue on the path that they have been on.
They don't really have bench depth, but if they can get these guys on the floor for a long time, in a 7-game series, they're going to be dangerous.
I agree.
The last one that we need to talk about real quick.
Yeah.
Unless you want to finish that point that you had.
No, go for it.
Last one that we have to talk about, former Duke guy that we both love seeing on the court, think are one of the most underrated big men in the league when he's healthy. Mark Williams got moved to the Lakers.
Yes.
This to me is a great move because
for both teams.
both teams. Not only because Jackson Hayes is not an NBA starting center, so you can chalk that one up to a loss, but also because he gives Luka Doncic a lob threat similar to what they had in a Daniel Gafford or a Derek Lively or one of those bigs that he had in Dallas. It brings familiarity in the role to this team and will help him get acquainted almost the second that he gets there. So this is a huge move for both teams, in my opinion.
I agree. I think that obviously the Lakers moved on from Anthony Davis, meaning that they needed depth in their front court. You were looking at starting like you said, Jackson Hayes, Christian Wood, Rui Hachimura, like guys that probably weren't going to be able to do that. And now you bring in Mark Williams, who's been averaging 16 and 10 when healthy. That is the biggest thing with him is can you keep him on the court? I think he's played only 82 games in like 4 seasons in the NBA, which is
it's
really
his third season in the NBA. Him and Paolo were drafted the same year.
Okay. But either way, like you need to keep him on the floor is like priority number one. And he has bounced around the G League a little bit and done some of that type of stuff. And now he is bonifying his role. The question that I have about this trade, just more so than anything else, is if you were willing to shop Dalton Knecht earlier in the season, I don't know why you didn't do that with Anthony Davis on the roster, because he was asking for you guys to get a 5, like a bona fide 5, so that he could play the 4 kind of for his entire tenure in LA. And they just never really did that.
Since they won the championship, that's how they did it.
Right, because they had Dwight Howard and Anthony Davis, right? So they were able to run that 2 big set. But now, you do make that move and you do move Dalton Knecht, and it felt like you probably could have done that earlier in the season if you wanted to. But Knecht now goes to the Hornets. He's a nice solid wing piece. They have absolutely no front court now. I don't know what their, direction is. They just traded for Yusuf Nurkic, I think. So, good on them.
Sweet.
But they traded away, obviously, Nick Richards and now Mark Williams. So kind of feels like the Hornets are going to hornet. But Dalton Knecht has shown some promise. He's, popped off for a couple good games, and he's, looking like a solid 3-and-D prospect in the NBA. Potentially could be a solid piece like a Denny Advia or something like that.
Dude, the Suns gave up another first in that deal for Nurkic, too. They gave Nurkic a first up. Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. Their situation is just unbelievable.
It's an absolute dumpster fire.
It's just
we'll break that down in another episode. But as always, thank you for listening. We'll be back to digest the Super Bowl and probably complain a little more about the NFL. We're both pretty pessimistic, but until then, we'll be back next week. This has been the Corner Office, and I'm Jack.
I'm Alex Benders, and I kind of jumped the gun there. I just wanted to make this note and say, for the Super Bowl, regardless of how that goes, you may get an episode that night. So we will keep you updated on that, and
possibly
we will see you then.
All right. We will be very upset if you get an episode on the Super Bowl. We will be very upset.
What's this right here? Oh,
beef, bend elbow,
extend, fall through.
Corner 3.